accident, and I quote, "An unfortunate incident that happens unexpectedly and unintentionally, typically resulting in damage or injury, or an event that happens by chance or that is without apparent or deliberate cause." Unquote. Welcome back this week. I am Jake Wolfenden with Summit Safety Group, and I am very happy to be here safe and sound. Within the very same week of challenging each of us to set the phones down during Teen Driver Awareness Week in order to be a better example for our kids and teens regarding distracted driving, I was personally involved in an auto accident. Headed home this past Wednesday evening, I was braking to turn off of a major street close to my neighborhood, and a young kid fell asleep at the wheel and plowed into the back of my nearly stopped car at almost 55 miles an hour. The crazy thing about this incident is I remember looking in my rearview mirror as I turned on my blinker, and I saw no one behind me. Within seconds, I looked back again to see headlights flying towards the back of my car, followed by a very sudden and powerful force that pushed me into the intersection ahead, where luckily there were no cars crossing at the time, while his car ended up in some trees just past a nearby hill. I'm happy to say that neither of us sustained any serious injuries. It could have been so much worse. Now, there are many different places that we could go with this scenario, but I want to address a certain mindset I feel can be damaging within many safety cultures. There's this idea that there are no such things as accidents, that a safety mindset or safety program will always equate to zero accidents, that every accident can be avoided with the proper protocol. But to argue this idea very simply, this car accident I was involved in completely debunks that idea. I was doing everything right and within my control. He came from the other lane and hit me square in the back. I never saw him until a split second before impact. I can confidently say that there was nothing I could have done to escape this. Why do I think this is worth noting, and maybe even worth arguing with some safety professionals that would disagree with this hypothesis? When you tell someone that we can live in a perfect, flawless world, human nature knows better based on the simple fact that we all experience the brokenness of this world to varying degrees. Most of us have to look no further than the imperfections within ourselves to see this reality. So in other words, we find statements pertaining to a standard of attainable perfection to be ridiculous and simply untrue. When that happens, where do our minds go? Usually we stop listening and start to check out of the conversation. Because how can we argue with someone that believes true perfection actually can be attained in any circumstance? You don't want to argue, so you just stop talking and therefore you stop engaging. And therein lies the problem. Our teaching within safety needs to be taught within the true scope and realities of life itself. If we expect buy-in, we have to engage people on a realistic level. No one is perfect. No program can be perfect. And no number of high standards will create true perfection. We are always dealing with the troubling realities of our own humanity. Coming to terms with this harsh reality is key in leading our teams to success. I believe that truth rather than fear will always be what prevails. Now, that being said, some tend to operate out of fear that if we acknowledge that true unintentional accidents can exist, our employees will blame every incident on bad luck or unintentional behavior. I think this is unfair and shows that certain leadership styles operate more out of fear and less on the fruits that can come when we walk with individuals and engage them on the events both we and they can control, which could in fact be the majority of the hazards that you have presented at your site or your facility. Look, I want to make sure I leave you with a couple important points. If you're listening to this and you're sitting there saying, see, zero accidents is impossible, so stop trying to preach that stuff. If that's you, I'm just going to tell you straight up that you're missing the point and that you need to check your attitude. The fact remains that there are companies, large companies, that have tasted the positive fruits of their solid safety cultures for long, extended periods of times. What I'm saying is that there's always the possibility for a true unintentional accident to occur, no matter how intentional you are. This doesn't mean that you don't work your tail off to build the best possible culture around you. And if this seems to be a ridiculous point I'm trying to make, you probably don't realize how damaging it can be to preach messages that aren't steeped in the real world, and how much pressure people can feel when they feel they've lost before they even began. If you want to lead a team around you that buys into your safety program for the long term, you have to reach them with truth. Structure, process, procedure, expectations, accountability, but also the truth. I'm Jake Wolfenden with Summit Safety Group. Thank you so much again for tuning in. I will see you next week.